But there you go, Koyorad, nice. Little spray painted thing in there. And you will see, I'll put these on the ground so we can do a side by side, but all of the individual like plugs and connection points are still there, which is good. Hey, what's going on, my dudes? James here, living life from dusk till dawn, and we are back with another upgrade video for Blue, my 2012 Mazdaspeed 3. As you can tell, I got a new radiator. It's Koyorad. It's a single core, same as the OEM one, but it is a full aluminum housing. So you see the original OEM one has the plastic kind of coolant channel siding thing, whatever you want to call that. Full aluminum on the Koyorad, which is good because that means increased cooling. So the biggest difference between these two radiators, because as you can see, shape in the front, they are the same height and width. They are indeed an OEM swap, so all of the plugs and bits and bobs are all in the same locations. The difference is that the Koyorad is a thicker radiator than the OEM one. So, and looking at the thickness of the OEM radiator, we are looking at just about 14 millimeters. Show you there, 14. And then the Koyorad is 25 millimeters. So quite the difference. That's going to make a large change in the amount of cooling capacity that we're going to be able to get out of our radiator, which is a good thing because as of a recent months, when I installed this front-mounted intercooler, all of the heat that was being produced through the turbo system was being exchanged in the top mount intercooler on the top of the engine. Now that it's in the front, all of the heat that's being extracted from the boosted air that's going into the engine is now blasting straight into the AC condenser and the radiator, which means both of them are suffering in their ability to extract heat from the atmosphere. Now, above the intercooler is open space, so naturally there's regular ambient atmosphere air that can flow through that, but it's not enough. So I have not yet had my engine overheat, but I have noticed a much higher coolant temperature value overall, especially when sitting at idle. So I ended up deciding, instead of waiting for my engine to overheat, I'd get ahead of the problem and order this new radiator. So it's not difficult to get the old one out. We're going to go through that. Basically, you drain the coolant from your engine and then disconnect a couple of lines, and then you can pull it out pretty easy. The new one goes back in just as easy as the old one came out. Very straightforward. The only difference is that the old one has these plastic clips right here that your AC condenser snaps into. The new one doesn't have a clippy doodle because there's no plastic, and so you have a bolt in order to do the same function. So we're going to go ahead and get the new radiator, we're going to get the old radiator out. I'll show you how to do that, and then we're going to get the new one in, refill the coolant system, and then fire up and go for a drive and see if we notice any difference in the temperatures. Hey, what's going on, my dudes? James here, living life from dusk till dawn. I'm inside Blue right now because we're going to go for a drive. So today's kind of upgrade video thing that we're going to be doing, after doing a lot of stuff in the engine bay, I installed a front-mounted intercooler, I did an EGR delete, I did a couple of other things that are in there, but I started to notice that engine temperatures, when it's hot outside, like above 85 degrees, get pretty dang hot. The engine doesn't overheat. I don't get like the high temperature light or anything, but it does get really freaking hot. So in order to counteract that, I have a couple of ideas that I'm going to do in order to see what's going on. The first idea is I want to install a couple of air ducts, or like air directing fins. And what that's basically going to do is it's going to force the air that's coming in through the front grille to entirely go towards the AC condenser radiator intercooler, rather than some of it can go around the outside of it and going to go around by like the tires and that kind of stuff, because then it's not useful for me. And then the second thing, and the thing that we're going to be doing in today's video, is installing a new radiator. So I went onto the Google machine and I found a full aluminum radiator from a company called Koyorad. It's a very well-known and high-end company, and they make the only OEM swap or OEM plus swap radiator for this platform. Having a fully aluminum housing for your radiator is pretty essential when you start modifying these cars, because cooling becomes a problem. And this radiator is a little bit wider than the other one. It's still a single core or a single channel. I also bought a Mishimoto racing thermostat, so it drops the temperature that it opens to much lower, and I believe it's got a better flow characteristic through it. I don't really know, but either way, we're gonna install that too, since we're gonna be over there and the coolant's gonna be drained again. I've been driving and idling for quite a while now. Engine's obviously up to temperature. The outside temperature is currently sitting at 84 degrees. And you can see that the engine sensor is seeing 198 currently. It's gotten up to 201, and it's probably gonna go up now that I've stopped moving and I'm actually just sitting in a parking lot. But then you can see the return temperature from the engine, well, if it wasn't flashing so much, is sitting right around 225. So it's hot. And like I said, I have seen it get up to 230 and sometimes even a little bit past that. Okay, so I've been driving. It's about 90 degrees outside and we are sitting right around 190 degree temperature. It's gotten down to as low as 185, but yeah. So let's see, the outlet temperature is sitting at about 225 still, which is good enough. I'd like it to be cooler, but I mean, it's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and pull into a parking area here, and we'll stop for a moment and let it idle for a good while, and we'll see kind of what it does temperature wise. So I recently had my car tuned, and unfortunately engine coolant was not on the list of things to be logged with the data, and I totally did not turn that back on when I did all of the data logging for this specific video. I will say that temperatures are somewhere around 185 to 190 on a hot day while driving around in traffic at about 40-50 miles an hour, and you're just gonna have to trust me when I say that, because, well, I don't have any proof. With that, we're going to go ahead and move into the actual install of the new Koyorad radiator. So I pulled the bumper off just to kind of make our lives a little bit easier. You don't have to do this, but I was also doing some other stuff. I had to change out like these clamps and whatnot. So you don't have to take the bumper off, but I did. We are going to get in here. We have to remove the fan shroud first, which is right here is your radiator fan. And that does a lot to keep your engine cool. So we've got two coolant lines. We have the coolant in, which is the big one right there, and then the coolant out, which is the small one down there. We have a plug right here, which is for our temperature sensor, our engine temperature sensor, and then we have a plug right here for the fan, as well as another little tiny plug that's in there somewhere. I think it's just underneath that big one. And that's all we have to undo in order to get in here. But because we're taking the coolant lines off, you gotta drain the coolant, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack my reservoir. If you guys have been running the engine and the engine is hot, be very careful with this, because it will be pressurized. Mine's probably out of vacuum right now because I think I took it off while it was hot one day. Yeah, there it is. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and crack that so it breaks the suction pressure, and then let's get underneath the car and I'll show you how to drain the coolant. So here we are under the car. This is forward, obviously. This is the driver's side. And if you look right here, this little key shape thing, it looks like a keyhole that's covered by my friggin' intercooler piping. This is your radiator drain. So you get a flathead or a Phillips head screwdriver in there, and you just kind of turn it to the left or counterclockwise, and eventually it'll pop off. Also, you can see that secondary wire up here, this orange one. That's the other plug that needs to come out when we remove the radiator. So unfortunately my intake is very much in the way, and I may have to take that off in order to get in there, but we'll see. So that is still draining, but I've undone everything else. I got the coolant return hose here off, the coolant engine return there, the coolant's return for the, the coolant supply for the engine on the passenger side. I haven't fully taken off yet because that's going to be full of coolant because it's a low point, and I need that to stop dripping before I can take care of that one. But I got the fan plug off, and then that orange cable, if you follow it, it ends up right over here next to the driver's side headlight where the wiring harness is coming up to go across the shroud or the core support. So that's where that plug is. And of course the temperature sensor. The last thing we got to do is we've got these little 3-way clippy doodles. You got to grab all 3 of these pressure clips and then pull it out. I've done this before by using 2 fingers and a screwdriver, and that worked really well because a screwdriver gave a little bit of leverage so that I could pull those with the screwdriver while still holding pressure with my fingers. So that would be my recommendation. And then other than that, the fan shroud should come right off, I believe. I don't think there's any bolts in there. I think it's just slotted down. We'll take a look at it once we get the shroud off, and I'll show you exactly what you're looking for. And then we'll have to pull the radiator off of the AC condenser. Well, really take the AC condenser off of the radiator, and you can see right here these little arms. There's 4 of them, one down on the bottom, one on the top on both sides, and how they're just kind of slotted in here. So you have to push these little tabs in, at least on the bottom. The top one doesn't have tabs, it's just support. So you push that tab in, and then you push the AC condenser up, and that will disconnect it from the radiator. And then you can just kind of leave it hanging there while you're doing the swap. And I think we'll have enough space to be able to pull the radiator down out of the car. If not, I've got more room to lift it with the jack, so no big deal. I'm gonna pull the radiator, and then we'll do a side-by-side with the Koyorad and just kind of take a look, because there's a couple things that we're gonna need to pull off of the old radiator in order to put into the new one to make it work. So I'll show you all that. Sorry about the noises. They're cutting a damn tree stump out right now. Anyways, I pulled the fan shroud. The bottom tabs here, you gotta press those inwards, like with your thumb or with a screwdriver, and then push up in order to pull the fan out. And then it should just slide straight down. I did have this upper tab right here get it bumped against the temperature sensor, so be careful of that. You have to pull it backwards towards the engine in order to get it over the sensor plug. And then yeah, the rest of it just kind of came out. So here's that orange wire we were talking about, and of course your fan plug itself. And then when you're in here, go ahead and check, make sure all your little flappy doodles are installed and working just fine. These are really important because your fan will do a lot for cooling. Obviously, while it's spinning, it's pulling air in, but it doesn't spin all the time. If your air conditioning is on, it will be running. But if it's not, then it won't be unless you hit your engine temperature in which the ECU kicks the fan on. So when you're in motion, the fan itself isn't really doing a whole lot. Like, it's still pulling air, but the motion of the car moving is going to be pushing more air than the fan is really going to be pulling, depending on your speed. And so instead of having a massive block-off plate right here, which only functions when you're like idling and the fan is pulling all the air through here, you want that to be able to open up and let airflow happen when you're in motion. So you put these little flaps in here, which are really easy to move, so that when you're moving fast enough and the airflow is higher than what the fan is going to be pulling, then these will open up and allow more air to go over the radiator and your AC condenser and all that sort of stuff. So pretty cool. The Koyorad radiator that I bought is going to work just fine. Is going to work just fine with the OEM fan shroud. It should be an OEM swap, OEM plus, one might say. So everything that's on that radiator, the shape, the connections, everything is going to be the same as the stock one. Only difference is it's a little bit thicker and it's an entire aluminum housing. So let's go ahead and get that radiator pulled. I got that other hose off. Oh God. don't break my fan in the process. We have ourselves an OEM radiator. That's pretty cool. If you guys remember, about maybe 2 years ago, I was having an issue with my air conditioning system, and through some investigating, I found the AC condenser, this one right here, the fins on it, on the bottom half, that was, yeah, the bottom half? Upper half, whatever. The fins that were open to the air and bugs hitting them and stuff, completely non-existent. And then when I touched the other ones, they would disintegrate in my fingers. Granted, it is a 2012, but I didn't know aluminum would do that in 10 years, or 12 years, 13, whatever. This radiator, I assume, is the the original one that came in the car from the factory in 2012. Really, 2011 would have been when it came out, right? And if I push, these fins are disintegrating in my fingers. It's not as bad as the condenser was, but even, you can see right there, like I barely touched it and they were already crumbling in my fingers. So keeping that in mind, I am sure that the cooling of this car would improve if I were to just swap it with another OEM radiator. But once again, I ain't about that life, especially if I start adding things to this car like more power. Let's go ahead and pop into this box and we're gonna pull out our Koyorad radiator. Now, it is my full intention to keep the OEM radiator just because it functions, and if something happens to this one, I have a backup. But this thing came in some fantastic packaging, I'll tell you that. And I need a knife to open it. But there you go, Koyorad, nice. Little spray painted thing in there. And you will see, I'll put these on the ground so we can do a side by side, but all of the individual like plugs and connection points are still there, which is good. And then it looks like we have bolted connections to hold that AC condenser on the front instead of just like the pressure fit that was in the other one. So this is interesting. It looks like Koyorad includes a spot for maybe a secondary temperature sensor. So that's kind of cool. And I wish I knew about that before I went ahead and installed my own. For those of you that don't know, I installed the glow shift gauges into my car because I don't have like a temperature gauge on the dashboard, just a hot and a cold. And if you look right there, there is a glow shift temperature sensor port. I basically had to cut my coolant line in order to install that in line with the coolant, and then put the sensor plug on there. But I could have put it on the radiator if I already had this one. So that would have been really nice. I've already swapped out the temperature sensor, the actual one right here, and put that on and tightened it. Don't tighten it too much. This is aluminum and soft, so I just went, I don't know, till it felt tight. If it ends up leaking, I can tighten it later while it's in the car. And then I also tightened the drain plug on the other side and then swapped the rubber bushings over. The temperature plug is I believe it's a 19 millimeter. I just used an all 16ths because I don't have a 19 millimeter. So I just tightened your adjustable crescent wrench on there and then tighten it down. Same with the drain plug itself. Now we get to reverse everything we did to put it back in the car. I'll slide the radiator into place, hook it back up to the AC condenser, and then we'll be putting the fan shroud back on and then reconnecting all the lines and stuff. And I'll show you that process, or I'll show you what it looks like when it's done, because, well, you saw me take it off. Okay, I have everything back together. I hooked up both the inlet and outlet coolant lines to the radiator. I have not bolted the front end back together yet, the AC condenser. I haven't bolted it onto the radiator. So I gotta do that, but I'm gonna fill it with coolant so we can start looking for leaks and stuff. Ooh, I should probably turn you more this way. So I got the two coolant lines on, I got the temperature sensor plugged back in, I got both the fan plugs in, and I'm gonna go ahead and put coolant in. And then, like I said, I double checked to make sure that the drain plug was tight and that the temperature sensor was also tight. Now this car does not have a radiator cap. It's like a fully sealed housing, so the only way to add coolant is to do it this way. Oh god, I'm gonna spill this everywhere, aren't I? Yeah, the only way to add coolant is to do it this way and then run the car and just keep the resi tank topped off. Well, the engine's running, obviously. I don't have any leaks as of right now. I'm gonna go ahead and get these installed for the AC condenser. This is a 10 millimeter, and they're pretty self-explanatory. So I'm gonna put them in, let the engine come up to temperature, and then we'll go for a drive. Okay, so I just came back from a drive, and oh my God, this is amazing. Hold up. Pause that real quick. This radiator is absolutely incredible. I am very happy with it. Driving down the road when the engine was at temperature, I'd like to mention it's 95 degrees outside right now, which during the OEM radiator test, it was 90 degrees. So it's 5 degrees hotter, and we ran, give or take, 10 degrees colder. So before I moved the intercooler from the top to the bottom, I was running somewhere around 178 degrees Fahrenheit while cruising down the highway at 50, 60 miles an hour, right? When it's 90-ish degrees outside. That was like the operating temperature. When I moved the intercooler down to the front, my engine temperature went up to, give or take, 85 to 90 degrees while cruising down the road, sometimes higher depending on the temperature. If we got over 100 degrees outside, it'd be even hotter than... I don't know, it seemed like a pretty marked change when you start getting above 80 degrees ambient temperature. With this radiator, the Koyorad radiator installed, engine temperature was back down to 178, which is insane. So sitting at idle in a parking lot for like 10 minutes, engine temperature didn't exceed 198 degrees. It wouldn't go up any higher. And with the OEM radiator in there and the front mounted intercooler on, we were looking at 207, and it would bounce between about 204 and 207, sometimes peaking up to 209, 210. And this is just absolutely incredible. So the engine has been sitting here for a minute. I just ran inside to do some stuff. So I'm letting it idle for a little while. Engine temperature is going to come back up, and heat soak is going to happen. And then I'll do another data log so that you can see coolant temperature. Once again, it is 95 degrees outside. 95, which is awesome. Well, it's not. I hate the temperature, but I mean, it's awesome that the radiator is doing exactly what I was hoping it would do. So while we're heating up here, I figured I would have a short discussion. That's probably going to be a long discussion. That radiator is thirsty, man. That holds more coolant than the OEM one. Obviously, it's a thicker core, and I don't know, like the end caps might be a little bit bigger or something like that. And it's supposed to be less restrictive, meaning more flow, which means that it probably houses more coolant anyways with that, whatever that means. So it took right around 2 gallons of coolant in order to fill the radiator and the areas of the hose, the silicone hose that I had to drain when I did like the thermostat install and stuff, which you guys didn't see in this video. But yeah, took about 2 gallons of coolant, or just under that. I've got the rest of it in the back seat. I'm keeping an eye on it every couple of days. I'll pop in there and just see if any air bubbles have leaked out. But yeah, so there are 3 more things that I want to do to this car that are going to help with cooling, with engine cooling. Obviously, I don't need to worry about it anymore, but that's just for the daily driving. If for whatever reason I start doing some track stuff with this car, I have a feeling I'm going to need a little bit more help than just that radiator. So I could swap out the fans. Honestly, the OEM fan's pretty darn good, so I'm going to leave it. Other than that, the other 3 things, or the 3 things that I want to do, are going to be constructing my own like DIY air ducting from the front. So right now, if you look in through the front grille, you can see basically the fender wells and the tires, right? All of that air gap on either side of, well, in this case, the intercooler and the AC condenser, the air conditioning condenser, all of that is just free space for air to bypass the cooling system of the car entirely. So I want to build out of just, 1/8-inch steel. I want to build plates that I can hope to direct more of that airflow to the radiator. Now, when I am in motion, that'll have some sort of an effect. When I'm sitting still like I am right now, just idling, it's not going to do anything because the fan is already pulling the air through the radiator, right? So it's not going to make a difference. It's cool. Second thing, I want to install an oil cooler on this car. I know I need to do a catch can, and with that, there is a sandwich plate that goes between the spin-on oil filter and the oil filter housing that can hook up basically two ports that go to an oil cooler, and then one that goes to an oil pressure sensor, and then one that goes to an oil temperature sensor. And this kit is from Damon Motorsports, and it's really expensive, which is why I haven't bought it. But installing an oil cooler is going to give another aspect of the air outside of the car cooling things in the engine such that engine temperatures can go down. It may not be directly connected to the coolant system, but if the oil temperatures are lower, the coolant temperatures are going to be lower. And the oil penetrates further into the engine block because it goes down to the bearings and all that sort of stuff. It penetrates further into the engine block than the coolant does, which just goes through the holes in the cooling jacket that's around the block itself, right? And then the third thing is hood vents. I know I had mentioned this, I think, in a previous video that I might have been doing some experimenting with hood vents. I wanted to know if there was going to be a difference at all with my idle engine temperatures or engine compartment temperatures, because when you're moving, the airflow coming through the engine bay, it's going to be whatever the air is outside of the car. But when you're idle, and you're sitting at a red light or something like that, or in a parking lot, all of that heat's just getting trapped in the engine bay. Once again, I don't have to worry about heat soak too much because I've moved my intercooler down and everything else is in the front of the engine compartment. However, if that heat has a place to escape that isn't just like where the wiper blades are, then it might be semi-beneficial. And then if I were to be tracking it or something, there is a benefit to basically suction pulling air out of the engine bay through the hood, but I don't have a splash guard underneath right now, so in all reality, all of the air is going out through the bottom anyways, so it's not too big of a deal. Those are the three things I want to do in order to help with cooling on this car: the ducting, the oil cooler, and the hood vents. So those are all videos that'll be coming out in the future. If you have any I don't know, inclination to come and see kind of what I end up doing for those installs, I can't tell you when those are going to happen, but it's going to be happening. So stick around, come see me again, and yeah, let's check out these temperatures. I have been idling here. I've been talking to you for 5 minutes about these cooling things, and then like a couple minutes before that, I don't know how much of this I'm cutting in post, but let me spin you around and show you what engine temperatures are looking like while I've been idling when it's 95 degrees outside. What the hell? It's 178 degrees right now, and if we look at this one, it's sitting right around 210, between 205 and 210. That's insane. If you guys remember from before, I'll probably have something up on the screen here, but we were sitting right around 230, pushing 250 with the water temperature leaving the radiator, or leaving the engine, and then the engine coolant temperature was sitting right around 198 to 205, which is insane. So that is a 20 degree difference right there. Something else, man. Absolutely something else. So we'll go for another quick drive here, and then I'll pull up and we'll do another data log and do a side-by-side comparison with the data. So something that is very interesting is my engine feels different after doing this, and I don't know if it's because it's running cooler, it just likes it more or something, but it feels different. I don't want to throw any words out there because a lot of it might just be placebo effect, but it feels different. All right, we're back at the house, back at idling, and we've given the engine a little bit of inspiration to raise those temperatures up. So we're sitting at 190, and even just sitting here, temperature's already got down to 187. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the record button. Now I'm recording data, and we're just gonna kind of watch it over the next couple of minutes and see. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing that I did before, turning off air conditioning. With the air conditioning system off, the fan for the radiator is also off, which is why coolant temperature is rising when I'm not moving because there's no airflow over the radiator. But we are about to hit the set point, which I believe is like right around 217, where the engine will, or the ECU will kick the fan on, and you'll see those temperatures go down. You can already see coolant temperature down to 194, and then the radiator inlet being right around 245 at the moment, still dropping. Yeah, 192 coolant. With the OEM radiator in here, I believe I captured this, but engine temperature still sat somewhere around 200 degrees or 198 when idling. And like I said, it's hotter outside right now than it was when we were doing that test yesterday, so I think it works. Hey, what's going on, my dudes? James here, and obviously I'm at the desk instead of inside of the car, and I just wanted to say that I owe you an apology. So after I installed my front-mounted intercooler, I totally forgot that my settings on the Cobb access port were set up for the professional tune that I had done. I'm sure the video is already posted by now, but point is I did not have engine coolant temperature selected as something that should be recorded during any sort of a data log. So unfortunately, all of the times that I planned to do data logs before and after installing this Koyorad radiator, unfortunately, it didn't record anything that you would care about. So that aside, this new radiator is absolutely insane. Before the Koyorad radiator, when it was all stock, I was sitting somewhere around 180, 190 degrees when sitting in traffic, pulling up the red lights. It's 100 degrees outside, no big deal, right? I then installed the front-mounted intercooler, and temperatures skyrocketed, right? Because there's a lot of heat that's coming from the boosted air that's being transferred through the intercooler, and then now that air is now going into the radiator, of course. So after installing this radiator, the amount of, I guess, effort that it took or time that it took for engine temperature to get up to 217 was drastically, increased. Not to say that we would not reach 217. However, that temperature drastically higher. So I can't show you specifically what the before temperature was, but I will say that after installing this radiator, instead of cruising at 190 to 200 engine coolant temperature, I'm sitting at 175, give or take 90 to 100 degrees above whatever ambient temperature is. It is now transitioned into winter, and so engine coolant temperature is at bare minimum 150, which is really cold for a gas engine. But once again, this intercooler works great, and I'm sorry that I failed to get those data logs to be able to show you the proof, but is what it is. So, but I don't really think I have much else that I can talk about for this. I'm sure if I think of something else, then I'll have to do some more filming later. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed. It's not a hard thing to do, swapping the radiator. It just takes some time, and you don't even need a lot of tools. You know, I think I used an 8mm, and I used a 7mm, and then I used a adjustable box wrench. And that's it. Granted, I lifted the car up and put it on jack stand and that kind of stuff, so you gotta have that. But it's not hard to do in the driveway, and it's not hard to do by yourself. So don't be afraid to do your own car maintenance, my dudes. Save yourself the money, do it yourself. Anyways, with that, I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, then please come back, see me again, follow along on this journey that I'm going through with this car. And I'm always waiting for the next thing, looking to do the next thing, and excited to continue making this car absolutely epic. So if you guys have any questions, drop them down in the comments, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Don't forget to live from dusk till dawn, my dudes. Peace.